Summer on Fire Mountain. It is great to have you join us. Welcome to another summer edition of Fire Mountain, where we're going to be spending a little bit of time having interesting discussions about faith, Christianity, and how it fits into the crazy mad world we're living in. If things look a bit different, that's because we're not in the studio. It's summertime. And I got a special guest joining me. I'm going to pull him in right now. It's chair of our trustees. It's head of our football. It's a director of our coffee shop. It's a helper and a real kind of a leader within our kids' work. Danny, the Jackson, is in the house. Danny, how are you?
Yeah, I'm good. Thanks, Richard. Thanks for the intro.
No, well, I wanted to build you up because the rest of Fire Mountain is going to be pulling you down. So here we are having a good summer break. And by break,
yeah, I've been off work for 2 weeks now, so she's using up holiday.
That's cool. So obviously, Danny, we're freshening up off summer camp. For those of you who saw Fire Mountain 33, just a little bit of a camp taster. What was your highlight of camp?
The highlight, definitely not the toilets. I went like 2 days of just holding until I could get home, and then it was bad.
And then you got home and you thought, yes, please, this is a luxury. I remember this clearly on camp because you basically were like thinking, okay, I'm just going to drive back and forth to use the toilet now. It's the only way to do that.
Yeah, pretty much. I did find a bush at one point, but probably shouldn't be telling everyone that.
Well, it's the fact that you found a bush and there were all people watching you jump over the fence and go towards the bush you found.
Oh, you saw me do it. You saw me do it.
I'm just saying, if we had a camera, we may be able to have played some of that footage, which would have been worthwhile, let's be honest, just to see what has worked itself out, which is cool. So, I mean, we got a lot to talk about, but obviously the biggest thing that we want to hit out on Fire Mountain today is the cost of living crisis and the energy crisis, because it seems to just all be spiraling crazy right now for people. And obviously you're well placed to have this conversation because you are a financial guru. You're great with your own personal finances, but also your financial advice is really good. You've been treasurer of the church before, so I feel like it's going to be an interesting conversation to get into. But before we do, I found this great little video clip of this guy. We've spoken about him before on Fire Mountain, Robbie Morgz. We'll put a link down in the description if I remember. I probably won't. He's got very little followers. So if you're on YouTube, follow him because he's well worth following. He's really funny. And he's done a great little video clip just really capturing, I think, what a lot of Christians go through when they come to thinking about spending money. So we're going to be back right after this. Enjoy this little video clip.
It's all about abundance. It's not about scarcity. Yeah, there's no debt in heaven. There's North Face. Yeah, 300 quid. Yeah. Because we don't live from a poverty spirit. Yeah, 2 lattes, please. Yeah. Do you want anything? Plans to prosper. Yeah, Ray-Ban. He provides every time, man. Every time he provides. Like, for me, I know. I mean, have you heard of a company called Wonga? Yeah, New Yeezys. I wasn't going to get them. I was just on the website, and then I just felt God say, "Hi, Rob, it's God, your daddy. I want to bless you. I want to bless my son. Big. Get him." I just had that verse, when I was naked, you clothed me. Maybe we should do like an offering around clothes. Just anybody who's in need can take from how I run out of money and need new clothes. No, I wouldn't say that.
I love the Wonga bit. The Wonga bit.
God provides. Have you heard of a company called Wonga? It's so good. I just like that. I want you to do it big. Buy a pair of Yeezys. It's crazy. Absolutely crazy. So let's get into this, Danny, because I got a couple of questions which I've been kind of thinking through when it comes to the cost of living crisis. So for those of you who don't know what's going on, basically, I want to say partly because of what's happening in Russia, but I feel like that's too simplistic. It's probably coming out from COVID, supply demands, Russia cutting oil supplies, and maybe a little bit of companies just going, there's a moment here for us to make a lot of money off a lot of people. Maybe, I don't know. Thoughts around that we can see. The cost of living has literally just gone through the roof. What felt like not really noticeable has now crazy. I got this little clip which just kind of came out this morning about the latest price cap in the energy bills. It's only like 20 seconds long, but this is nuts to me.
Hello, very good morning to you. And we start with that breaking news as the energy regulator Ofgem announces the new price cap for fuel bills in England, Wales and Scotland. So from October, the energy price cap will increase to £3,549. Now, that's a huge rise from the current £1,971 per year. That's been in force since April.
Danny, does that mean that energy companies are allowed to charge you up to that limit a year?
No, they can charge you more than that. That's basically just saying based on the average household, that's what it would come to. But effectively, it's just the usage rate. And if you use more, you're going to have to pay more. Although it says cap, doesn't mean that you're capped at that value. But that's an 80% increase.
Dude, that's crazy.
Yeah,
it's crazy.
That's quite a lot.
yeah. It feels expensive. It feels expensive.
Yeah.
So hold on. So you're saying cap doesn't mean cap at all?
No.
So why do they call it a price cap?
I think they're capping how much you pay per unit of gas and electricity. I think it's more referring to that rather than a cap that you
So at average use, this is how much more you're going to pay. But obviously, if you use more, you're paying way more. Than that. Yeah. Dude, that's crazy. So one of the things that they were talking about when I was reading this is they're going, now more than ever, there are more people in energy poverty than at any other point in the history of the UK. So people who are going, we actively can no longer afford to pay for the energy we utilize, which sounds crazy. So obviously in your business, so for those of you who don't know, Danny's director in a company, not just a coffee shop, but also a regular for-profit normal company. How do you guys deal with these things in your company when it comes to like the guys, like, you know, your employees? Because obviously they must all be looking and going, it's going to be quite difficult.
Yeah. It's. I think so you mentioned a few things there. You mentioned the obviously the COVID, coming out of COVID, the war in Ukraine. I think don't forget Brexit. A lot of this is still off the back of all those things happening, and where the supply chain has just been put all over the place. It's almost given. It's not necessarily companies, but it's a lot of it's the raw materials. The cost of raw materials is just rocketed. So companies are buying at a much higher rate. My concern is when it starts to come back down again. Will the companies pass on the savings, or will they just make more money themselves?
So do you actually think that? Do you think it will come back down, or do you think that they'll begin to go, this is the new norm?
Yeah, I think some things will. I mean, obviously there's a huge impact on transport costs and stuff like that at the moment, in getting stuff in from abroad, and just transporting stuff around the UK, not just because of the fuel prices, but also just the shortage of drivers, and impacts just from COVID, Brexit, all that sort of stuff. Wow. So I think that some of it is just costs that have gone up. So I don't think it come right back down. But I do think some of the things will come down. Steel price, for instance, at the moment is 80-90% higher than what it was 2-3 years ago. And the steel price index does go up and down. So doesn't mean that the companies have to pass on the savings at the end of it. But it means the raw materials are. But in terms of what we do as a company, the company I'm obviously a director of, we're constantly looking at what we can do for our employees. I'm very lucky to work for a very good company, where they are looking at putting the profits back into the employees. So we've had things like supplementing fuel costs. So anyone coming into the office, we pay an amount per mile of when they come into the office.
Wow.
We've done one-off payments, in relation to knowing that the costs are going, particularly the fuel price, gas prices, and stuff like that, because they've just been great. When you hear at 80% today, and that's not the first increase. I think that's the third or fourth increase.
The third one, I think.
So and I think there's another one in 3 months' time. So it's more looking at those sort of costs and going, okay, how can we support with that? But at the end of the day, companies can only support it when they've got when they're making a profit. If they're not making a profit, it's very difficult for them to support. And even then, it's down to the shareholders, the company owners. Are they happy to sacrifice some of their profits to give to the employees. So
Yeah.
I'm very fortunate to work for a company that does do that.
So like they've been talking about this thing about creating special tax to begin to tax the bigger companies, to begin to pull back on the profits to try and offset the living costs. Now, obviously, the company you're director of is a larger company.
Yeah.
So it's not just like, just a little local company business. It's much bigger. So I'm really interested to hear your thoughts around that. Like, would you be in support if the government came out going, we're going to be taxing all of the energy companies, and actually, if you're beyond a certain size or a certain profit index, we're going to put more tax on you to take that money so we can begin to subsidize or help bring down the cost of living for everybody else? Or are you like, yeah, no, that's not how we should do it?
Yeah, I don't know, but my suspicion would be if that's the route we went down, then prices would go up even further, because at the end of the day, companies are owned by shareholders. Shareholders want to make a profit, and some shareholders are pension funds and stuff like that. They want to make profit. So if they're taxed more, they make less profit. How do they make more profit? They put their prices up and increase their margins. So it could just result in sort of almost a circle. And you see inflation going higher.
But you must feel like an ethical dilemma. Like, surely you feel an ethical dilemma in looking at
when you look at like some of the
Shell or something going, I've made £4 billion profit this quarter, and we're all going, I can't put fuel in my car.
Yeah, when you look at those companies and they're just making, we've made however many £1 billion, we don't know what to do with it, we're going to just start buying our own shares back and stuff like that's obviously an excess of funds, maybe it's being pushed too far, but also these companies do a lot of good works as well with their profits. So I think what you don't want to do is cut back all their profits, and then they can't do some of the good works they do as well. So I'm not saying they put all their money into that, but they do they do some good stuff as well.
Yeah. So I mean, obviously, we've had ongoing discussion for quite a while around issues of like tithe and thinking through tithe, and as Christians, kind of all of these types of principles. And now we're faced with this real cost of living crisis where people are going, I don't even know if I can afford to pay to heat my house up in the winter because the increase is so ridiculous. And like, I've had this before where I then begin to go, I need to look at the budget, and when I look at my budget, I think, well, one of the significant budget lines that's really easy to remove and release some money into my bank account to be able to spend in, let's say, is the tithe line. And so I wanted to kind of unpick this a bit, because obviously Fire Mountain. So, I think for a lot of people, the reality is they'll look and they'll go, the easiest thing for me to do is to stop my tithe. That's going to give me access to that kind of income. And I'm really thinking here of people who are really kind of sticking to the tithe, and we'll speak a bit about that. But off the bat, I was interested to kind of pull out from you some of your thoughts around it. So if I came to you and I said, hey, Danny, I'm going to cut my tithe because I literally cannot, like, cost of living crisis is crazy. What would you say?
First of all, again, Richard, you're crazy. You're a pastor. You should know better. That's what I'll probably start at. Just because, I like to be quite straight.
Yeah, because you like to be straight down the line. So you go, what is wrong with you?
Yeah, like you're crazy. Yeah, I think you're right. You look at the value that sometimes people put into tithes, and it often is a large amount of what you're doing. One of my sons, Ollie, he started work 2-3 weeks ago, and he got his first paycheck yesterday. And we're talking about, and he's like, I've got this amount of money. And for him, it's a huge amount because he's been working almost a full month, full time, and never sort of, this is his first job. And he's thinking, okay, I've got to spend this money. And then we started talking about tithes and stuff. And it was a good conversation. Obviously, he doesn't have any overheads like what you're talking about and stuff, but it was a good conversation. But I think the tithes have to be first. And for me, there's no way I'd ever go away from that, just because I see it for me, it's a biblical principle that we have to follow, and I think sometimes there are other things that can be cut. That maybe you don't see on the face of things, but there's often a lot of things that still can be done. I look all the time about stuff where I can make savings or move stuff around, or all the time looking at how I can do those things, because there's no way I want to touch the tithing line. If anything, I'm looking at, okay, how can I increase that? How can I be more generous? How can I be more of a blessing? I'm blessed. How can I bless more people?
Yeah. So when you talk about tithe, let's just quickly unpick that. What you're meaning when you say tithe, because obviously there's multiple ideas on what tithe could be. So when you're talking about tithe, what are you saying?
Yeah. So for me, tithe is minimum. I say minimum. For me, it's the starting point is 10% of everything I earn. And then, okay, how much more can I go from there? And it's not, for me, it's not just, obviously you've got the biblical principle of the 10% and giving your tithe. Also, there's a for me, there's a massive heart thing. I want to see the church grow. I want to see I want to see things happen. So investing into that seems like a no-brainer for me. It's almost a no-brainer. I know I'm putting my tithe in, and often people don't like tithing because they think, okay, it's wasted on this or wasted on that. Whereas I probably quite a while ago, probably 15 years ago, I saw a few issues within the church on people concerned about where the tithing was going. And from that day, I never wanted to get involved in the financial side, even though I was qualifying to be an accountant, because I thought this is just too much hassle. I don't want to get involved. I found a different way of looking at it, and I thought, well, rather than looking at what's being used on money that I don't necessarily agree with, maybe some of the marketing or some of the nice printed material or an overhead projector or whatever.
Dude, an overhead projector.
Well,
Daddy, how old are you, dude?
Well, now the things in the sky. The
projection. Just the projector. Just a regular digital.
Just a regular projector.
Because overhead projector requires some acetate and people handwriting things on it.
Richard, you're older than me, 6 months.
Hey, let's just 5,000 viewers. Just for clarity here, at camp, we asked some of the young people, the youth, the honest youth, what ages would you pitch all of us at? They looked at Kevin Clark, shirtless Kevin Clark with his ripped body, and they said maybe 30. They looked at me, they said 42. I said, I take it. They looked at Danny and they said over 50.
Yeah, I think one was 49 actually.
Well, no, yeah, but that one doesn't count though, does it? Because it's 50. Basically, they've got 49 and 11 and a half minutes.
49 was far too high. Yeah. So I've sort of changed to looking at, okay, rather than looking at the things that I perceive as being wasted, and at the end, it's not my call. That's the church leaders got to answer to that. Is I look at the things that meet with my heart. So that I think actually, I'm contributing towards a part of the kids pastor wage, because kids work is a big passion for me, and I sort of see it like that. And think, okay, let's pick the positives rather than the negatives on that side. And also, I know actually almost that's irrelevant, because it's the command in the Bible is to give your tithe, and then the elite church leaders have got to then answer to that. Is how I see it.
So when you say 10%, are you talking pre-tax? Do you go, this is how much I earn pre-tax, or do you go, once I've paid my tax, once my pensions come off, once N9, all that stuff is done, now I'm going to work out my 10%?
Yeah, no, definitely pre-tax. I think definitely pre-tax. Otherwise, where do you stop? Do you go, okay, right, once I've paid my national insurance bill, once I've paid my tax bill, once I've paid my gas, electricity, once I've paid my food bill, once I've paid my Netflix, at what point do you do you give up on that? Because I think your tax, although it comes out before it hits your bank account, it is a tax. It is national insurance. They are bills, the same as your direct debit that's coming out for your council tax.
Great.
It's the same thing.
Yeah, it's great. It's a great way of seeing it. I've never really thought about it as a bill, because I think we think about it as this penalty we have to pay to the government, rather than actually it's just
it's just another bill. It's been made easy by the fact that the government take that first, probably so that you don't spend it and they can't get hold of it.
Yeah.
But I imagine that's probably why I'm going to make sure I take Richard's tax before he spends it.
Before he spends it on anything else.
can't pay it. So, yeah, I think it is a bill. It is it is a tax bill. It is a national insurance bill. It is you're getting stuff for that. Whether you like what you're getting for it, it's that's it.
So I'm going to throw you under the bus a bit because I had this question thrown at me at the back end of camp because we were talking a bit about the tithe and the same as you is my lines would be 10% is just what we give. That must be anything above that is when we start to wrestle out generosity and go, okay, God, how much more do I want to give? And I suppose even pretty much probably like you is irrespective of the financial situations going on, we should still give 10%. Like it should be top priority in our giving.
Yeah.
And then someone came up to me and said, I get what you're saying, but this person's spouse isn't a Christian.
Yeah.
And obviously they have joint account.
Yeah.
And so their spouse is heavily resistant to them giving money to the church.
Yeah.
So what would you say? Because I literally stood there and went, that's a great thing. We should use Spy Mountain on that because I don't have a great answer. So now I get to chuck it on you.
Yeah, I would say two things. One, providing it's not just an excuse not to tithe, because it would be it'd be an easy excuse to go. My partner doesn't agree with it, and we have joint money. Not all married couples do have joint funds, joint money. I do. But yes, so I think sometimes that isn't the case. Sometimes you can control your own money. But I'd say if it's really going to cause a marriage dispute, then I think providing the heart is that you want to do it, and you'd be willing to be obedient with that. Then I'd say I wouldn't cause issues within the marriage.
Yeah.
I don't think that would. I don't think that's what God would want from.
Wow.
Yeah, that would be my take on it.
I'd say to them, I don't really know a good answer here because I think it is difficult. But I said that alongside probably what you said, a more robust conversation with your spouse in terms of not, I'm going to give 10%, but trying to come to an agreed amount, even if it's, £2 a month.
Yeah.
But where there is an agreed amount, because I'm uncomfortable with the idea of people going behind someone else's back or, I don't think that's right or healthy for marriage. And also pretty much like you is we run a joint account, so all of our money is central. And I have definite thoughts around that for married couples. Like I just think it's a healthier model to exist inside of than separate money. But inside of that is, I think then there has to be a shared ownership in that conversation to go, actually, hey, there is a burden I have because of the faith I carry. Is there any movement here? But if there isn't, then I agree with you. I think the intent then is, if I could, I would. And if I can't, I don't think God is going to be like, whoa, what are you doing?
Yeah, and I think definitely. I think that I'm in a fortunate position now where I've got a really good job and stuff. But I've always kept tithing as the that's the number one thing that comes out. Even when myself and Nick first got married, we bought a really small flat, and we couldn't really afford to live. Do you remember those micro meals, Findus lasagnas?
Yeah.
Like literally, you could buy one of those. I think it was under £1.
Yeah,
that was our evening meal, like 6 nights a week, because that's all we could afford.
And ironically, Danny, even though your salary's increased, that hasn't changed.
Oh, yeah, no. And Findus don't do them anymore, so we now get Tesco's own. But yeah.
And just for Fire Mountain listeners, when Danny said him and Nick, his wife's name is Nikki. Just for clarity there.
Oh, yeah.
It could have gone either way.
Yeah. Although I like the idea of separate bank accounts, because like she works at Lounge one day a week. I'm 5 days. I could go on holiday every month if I had separate.
If you had separate bank accounts, that's true.
Yeah.
It's true, mate. I mean, there are benefits. There are practical benefits to it like that. But no, that's cool. I think that's really helpful. And what about credit cards? So obviously some people tithe off their credit card. And we've been to conferences where we've seen people do that.
Yeah.
Hit the tithe machine, know.
Yeah. I would I'd be really cautious. I'd say it depends how good you're at running your finances. So I generally, all my spend goes through credit cards, and then at the end of every month it all just comes out of my bank account, because I manage my finances pretty tightly. I know what I'm spending on the credit card. I know how much is coming out at the month. So it's convenient to do it that way. One, it gives you protection on your purchases, but two, which points me in prizes. So that works quite well for me on credit card. But I think if you're not paying off your credit card every month, then absolutely, I definitely wouldn't be running up debt in tithing. I think you need to be. Yeah, you need to be managing your finances so that it's not coming off on credit card.
Yeah. Just quickly unpicking your debt thing a bit. So, do you think people should scrap their overdraft?
No, I think no. I think we no. At the point where you're going into, I helped someone with their finances. Probably about 10 years ago. Someone at work, they were really struggling with their finances. And they literally just gave me their bank account details, everything. They said, they came in with a massive file and said, "This is all my stuff. Help me." And literally, she was getting paid. It was clearing her overdraft, and then the next day, she's just going into the overdraft again. And I thought, this is crazy way to live, because she was then paying a lot of fees on the overdraft, so that it was almost self-perpetuating. And as it turned out, she actually had savings, but she didn't want to touch her savings because that was savings for stuff she was doing. But she was paying more in her overdraft fees than she was saving on her savings. There's many other things where we looked at things like telephone bills, internet, all the TV packages, Netflix, Now TV, all those sorts of things, and we managed to make huge amounts of savings by just switching stuff around, insurances, all that sort of stuff. But yeah, no, I think I think really, and I know it's not always possible. I think where possible, you should try not to be going into your overdraft. I'd say overdraft should be for emergencies. And even then, I'd say if you can get yourself in a financial position where you've got 1 to 3 months worth of salary at the side somewhere, that's where I'd ultimately aim for. It takes a while to get there. But I think having an aim of, okay, that's where you want to get to, is probably a good thing.
So because I'm so fascinated by it, because obviously you guys are super generous. You and your wife are super generous people, and you're really fortunate. But I don't think that your fortune is just self-made. I do think that there is a divine, like God's like arched inside of your entire story, because you've been faithful in your tithe. And I think what always fascinates me about your story is you seem to have cracked this idea of living at the right level of your wage. I don't know if that makes sense. Like lots of people I speak to, you're like, for the wage you earn, you can't have the lifestyle you're living. It's disproportionate. And yet, like, you somehow have managed to carry the weights of that, where, you're not going, I'm living in squalor, even though I am now in a really good job. But on the flip side, when you got married, you're eating, less than a pound meals, not going, well, we're going to be going out twice a week and eating all this takeout. You were making, you kind of have always managed to somehow balance your lifestyle along to your finances. And I wonder how much in the cost of living crisis people are experiencing now, some of the push, ridiculous prices increases, let's not lie, but also how much some of that is what's really being crunched is our lifestyle. So and how do you think guys could bring that back into balance? Is it possible to bring that back into balance, especially if you're living in a lifestyle that your income can't really support?
I think it's you're right. Whatever you earn, you then have outgoings that almost match what you earn, and things change and stuff like that. I think it is important that as costs and stuff go out, you're making adaptations and looking for things as you go. Today I'm sponsored by Audi Explosade, not Lucasade, because
Explosade.
Audi's, and that's one of the things. So even recently, we used to always get our Tesco deliveries from Tesco's on a Tuesday night. Now we go to Aldi or Lidl. It's hassle, but it's 30% cheaper.
Yeah.
And I think it's that, and that's just one of the things that I'd rather sacrifice that than sacrifice. Maybe some of the generosity things or my football. For me, I wouldn't want to sacrifice my football. But and everyone has to choose those things. So I'll go out for a meal. If I go out for a meal, the first thing I'll be doing is looking on voucher sites. Okay, can I get buy one get one free? And generally, I'll drink water when I'm out for a meal, because for me it's not that important. But other people, I
know that's true, Danny. I've been out for a meal with you before.
First thing I'm doing, literally straight on the voucher site. So what vouchers can I get?
There's you never look and go, let me take you to a nice restaurant. You're always saying to Nikki, oh, we're going out for a meal for a special occasion, so we're going to have to go to Pizza Hut because I have this discount.
And there's always a choice, though. There's always a choice. Always a choice. But and that for me, because that's it comes, okay, what's important to you? Where will you take the hit? And I think every person's different. If going out for a meal is your date night and the only time you're going out with your partner, well, that's probably quite an important thing you want to protect. Okay, maybe you change where you're going, but that's probably something you want to protect. Where the other things, maybe your mobile phone. Do you really need that much data on your mobile phone? Do you really need the latest Apple phone? Do you need the movie channels or all the packages on Sky and all that sort of stuff? And I think it's really evaluating what are the important things for you, and then how do I adjust what I do? But for me, the tithing is number one important, so that never moves, and also over time you sort of build up different things. So like we sponsor a child in Uganda, we sponsor a child in Burma. I couldn't pull them, because it's like I don't know what's going to happen to that kid. So you end up those sorts of things you just keep going with, and they become a high priority for you as well. So
I think that's so good. That's so good, because I think the biggest challenge, and I feel it in what's going on, is I feel like it reaches a point where people go, well, if we just lower our tithe, if we just cut it in half, if we just kind of stop, we'll come back to it. But I always feel like, and I know for myself it would be true, if I stopped tithing, to get back into it feels like it would be near impossible.
I think similar, and I think, I can just think of so many times where I've been blessed. It just doesn't make sense, like financially doesn't make. And the only thing I can say is, it's got to be because of where I've been tithing and stuff like that, because it just doesn't make sense on paper when I look at some of the things that have happened. I think it just does not make sense.
So there's a moral issue here. When we look at all of the profit gouging that's happening by a lot of the energy companies specifically, obviously it feels immoral. So you're being a Christian for many years. You have a real living faith in Jesus. At some point, do you feel like Christians need to band together and say, we're either going to withhold paying for our energy of some kind as a protest of the immoralness that's working out? Should we be kind of going on marches? Should we, as churches, be trying to gather Christians to go and march against these companies and go, what you're doing is immoral, because the most vulnerable are the ones who are going to be the most adversely affected by what's kind of going on? How do you see taking it beyond just a personal response, but onto way more of a national type idea? What do you think Christians should begin to do in this space and time, rather than just being passive complainers, which is where I feel I sit right now? I feel like I'm a passive complainer about the cost of living crisis. It's terrible.
I think it's difficult, because I think you need to know the ins and outs of how it all works. And there's something, when you see companies, there's been a lot of energy companies that have gone bust. And it's because they're buying at one rate, having to sell at a lower rate, and they're losing money. So it's understanding where's it all coming from initially, where they're making all this money? Because it's not every energy company. There's a lot of a lot have gone bust. Staff have lost their jobs and all that sort of stuff. So I think it would be wrong to be marching against companies without knowing, okay, where is the real issue? I honestly don't know. I think it's a government thing. I think the government need to step in and look at even the tax on these things. Okay, do they really need the tax on that? Could they get it from somewhere else? And to be fair, there are a lot of good. There are some funds that the government are giving out. I think there's a £400 payment or £600. I'm not sure what it is, but there are also charities that are around supporting people that can't meet their costs.
So do you want to unpack that a bit? Because I know that beforehand you were busy just saying to me, "Oh, there's a lot of good help available," and then you just started to throw stuff out, and I was like, "Oh, we should really highlight some of this on Fire Mountain, especially for guys who are struggling in the cost of living crisis right now."
Yeah, so I think so just on the gas and electricity things, that's obviously the big one that's out today. That there is a one-off payment that will be coming to a certain number of households. Now, generally, if you're on universal credits or tax credits, I think you're eligible for that. There is also your energy company will have something on it. If you're really struggling with your bills, contact us, because they have access to a charity that's that also is supporting people when generally can't afford the bills. I don't know any of the details around that, but I have seen that quite a few times now, where that can help. I think looking at the big, so for myself, we moved into a house. The house is absolutely freezing, and in the first winter we had it cost an absolute fortune to heat the house, because the windows were sort of held shut with cardboard and stuff, so it was crazy cold. And I remember we saw our first gas bill, and this was before the price went up. Thought, we can't afford this, so we were looking at all sorts of stuff. So since then, I've then looked at insulation and stuff like that. Well, our house isn't insulated. We've had surveys done; it's not insulated, and by putting insulation in, which I did a couple of weeks back now, there was initial outlay, but actually it pays back itself within. Well, it was within 2 years. Now with all these prices going up, it's going to be less than a year. Yeah. So I think there's things like that. On the cooking stuff, I was reading articles. I've been reading a lot of articles about air fryers. Air fryers apparently use a quarter of the energy to ovens and stuff like that.
Air fry. What are you reading, Daddy? What are you reading?
Yeah, actually, we were looking for lounge one, but and I needed something at home. But yeah, a quarter of the energy is great. So now even like I think it's Iceland and Audi are going to be starting to put air fryer instructions on their food, because one, it's healthier, but two, it uses a quarter of the energy of what an oven does. Do you know how much it costs to run a tumble dryer?
No.
So a tumble dryer now on the new rates will cost £2.50
per cycle.
Per cycle.
Jeez.
Per cycle. Now you can buy these wool balls that you put in your tumble dryer that apparently reduces your tumble dryer time by about 30%. Now these balls are like £7. So if you use a tumble dryer regularly, and some people have to use a tumble dryer because they don't have space to dry clothes and stuff. But yeah, I think if you do use a tumble dryer, obviously you can dry outside. So I think there's things like that. Even just if you've got a smart reader in your house, turning off different pieces of equipment and find out, okay, what's costing you money. So when we moved into the house, we had a fish pond in the garden, and it's got like 10 fish. I was like, just get rid of it. And Nick's like, oh no, I like the sounds of the water running down. I'm like, yeah, great. £20 a month, or something like that. But even in that, we've managed to find a low energy pump that in less than a year will pay back itself in the cost of energy. Yeah. I'm sure it applies to many different things. I don't know what devices people use, but look at the devices. Are there lower? If you're going to if your fridge or freezer's packed up and you need to get a new, make sure you're getting a lower higher energy rating, because it will use less energy, particularly if you've got a really old fridge, freezer, etc. But I think there's many things like that. Yeah, I just think there's so many different things where I've made cuts. Now, window cleaners, ditch the window cleaner, do it yourself. It's messy, by the way, but it's what it is. Yeah, it's mobile phones. people often pay 30, 40, 50 pound a month on mobile phones. I think we're paying £8 on ours on a company called Smarty, which is on the free network or something like that. It's just a SIM card. It's got lots of minutes, lots of data, but it's really, really cheap. Moving those sorts of things around, but I think there are things that you can do to help. And I think there's other things like there's an app called Olio, Olio, where you can pretty much people will post on there. We've got this food left over. If you're in the area, come and get it. So one, you can do that for other people and bless people. We all have stuff that's going to go out of date, not be used, where we can bless other people, put it on there. But also, if you're really struggling, then take the help that's there. Camford Heath fridge. The fridge is there to support people. If you're struggling with food and stuff, it's a great place to go. Vinted, there's an app called Vinted. I don't know if you've seen that, but you can buy secondhand clothes very, very cheap.
Do they have a section called Chav in that for you? Like, do you put a filter on Chav brings up your trackies?
You can get some quality tracksuits, to be fair, for like £3 or £4. There's there's an app called Too Good to Go, which is basically restaurants and stuff that then at the end of the day, instead of them now binning the food, they put it on this Too Good to Go, and you can pick up a bag of food for like £2. And you can get all the leftovers from Toby Carvery, for instance, for £2.50, I think it is.
We got a Greg's around the corner from where we are.
Oh, Greg's is great for it,
dude. They're on Too Good to Go, and honestly, whenever I can, just throw that on, and you're guaranteed. I think we pay £3 for a bag, or £2 like 90 or something. And we get ridiculous amount of stuff in there. It's crazy.
But all these little things that are there, and I think sometimes, I've seen twice this week actually people being offered help, either food or housing or something, and they've turned it down because I'm guessing the only thing I can think is they're ashamed to ask for help. But these places are there to help people. They want to help. And people want to support each other. That's one of the things from COVID where we saw that really step up. And I think where there is help, we should be looking to take the help. And where you are blessed yourself, okay, how can you bless others through these different things? And look at that.
I think it's so good, and I think that more than ever, I agree with you. Small changes will make a big difference, rather than just looking at the top lines and going, well, I think it's easy, tithe, generosity, give up on these things, rather than these are lifestyle issues, and actually just a shift in our lifestyles here. I mean, we don't need to begin to lose some of the bigger line items that are, I think, of utmost importance for us to keep kind of doing, no matter what the financial crisis is. So, knocking it on, Danny, what's the element of faith inside of all of this? Like some Christians you speak to, and sometimes even on Fire Mountain, we've done some stuff around, the prosperity gospel, and we've had some fun with that. But a lot of Christians you speak to go, well, we'll just push ahead, carry on. God's going to sort it all out. It's all going to be fine. Do you think that there's margin for Christians to be like that? Do you think that that's just dumb? Like what how does faith and kind of the provision of God, like what I find funny about that Robbie video is how he talks in that it's ridiculous when you hear it, but it's not far off what I hear a lot of Christians saying. Like, no, God's going to bless me. God's going to get this. It's all good. It's just, so I don't need to be overly worried about it. Like, how do we meet to this thing within faith stuff?
I think it's important to have faith. I think when, if I look back to when I said when we first got married and we were really struggling, but I knew that God was there and He would provide. But that didn't stop me from trying to make changes and look at what I can do as well. Because I think if I'm not looking after my finances well, and I think doing all these things that we just highlighted and stuff is important, that you're looking after your finances well. So if you're wasting stuff, then maybe God is blessing you. You just don't know it because you're wasting so much of it. So I think I'd probably have a problem if people just carried on as they were. Okay, let's just keep spending. Let's keep not looking at where we can make savings and stuff like that, or adjust our lifestyles. I'd probably have a problem with that, I think. But I think if you're doing all these things, then I think you can trust that God will be there, God will provide. But
and I feel like it's, and a lot of what you've spoken about, it feels like the biggest barrier to that is going to be like laziness, because it's just a lot of hard work. Like, it's hard work to work through the apps. It's hard work to go, instead of the convenience of doing this online, I'm going to now go into a shop and actually do it. It's hard work to review your car insurance and go, can I actually get this thing cheaper? All of it feels just like it's a lot of hard work. It's even hard work to sit down and go, okay, whatever, my car's about to break. Like, what happens if? What happens? How do I pull if we got a second-hand electric vehicle, or if we bought this vehicle? Okay, that's going to reduce this. And within 3 years, we think actually all of that's just, it's a huge amount of work that needs to happen before making that decision. And it feels like most people just go, oh, just can't be bothered with that. So let's just carry on as we are, which is kind of crazy.
I think it is hard work. It is hard work, and I remember, and again, if you talk to Nikki, sorry, if you talk to
Nick's the one you want to go with.
You talked about finance. She'll always refer back to a time when we were really struggling, and we had to look at all the expenses. We put together a spreadsheet and literally recorded every penny, like. If we went to the shop and bought a 30p newspaper or whatever, we never bought newspapers. So I don't know why that's the example I come up with, but that
there you are.
That would be on the spreadsheet, and literally then analyze everything. Actually, do we realise to spend? One that people don't often realise is buying meal deals at lunchtime. A Tesco meal deal, which is probably the cheapest if you've got a club card, is £3. But £3 a day, 5 days a week, £15. 4 weeks in a month, 60 quid a month you're paying just on meal deals. Whereas if you go and buy at the beginning of the week, you're probably going to pay 5 quid for the whole week. So it's things like that until you actually really write them down and see, I'm using a lot of money on this whatever it might be, and then you can address it. Until you know what you're spending your money on, you can't address it. So
wow!
But it is a lot of work. It is a lot. You have to be intentional, and I think particularly in a marriage, you've both got to be okay. Right, this is what we're gonna look at making changes. And
I think what's so important is the work is about not ending up sacrificing the stuff that's most important, like the tithe or generosity. And I think that's what people forget, is you will end up sacrificing that because you end up going, it's really the only thing I can get rid of. Rather than actually we've put in the hard work to make sure we're not getting rid of that.
But that comes down to the initial thing that I said, where it's okay, what are your non-negotiables? Okay, so tithes, generosity, non-negotiable. My tax and national insurance non-negotiable because the government are going to take it anyway. My council tax, got to pay that. My rent or mortgage, although in that, there could be something that's done to reduce the costs in those potentially. It's particularly with mortgages. I think there's a lot that can be done with that people don't necessarily realise. That can be done, particularly now house prices are much higher. That can be done with that, and then for me, date night or whatever that might look like. Okay, maybe we have to go make it cheaper, and
you've got a whole lot of vouchers that make that possible.
So basically, the place ended up paying me to go there, and but I think and for me, football is for me that's one of the non-negotiable things for me, because it's like, actually that's important for me to get exercise. I really enjoy it. It fills my energy levels and stuff. So but then from there it's like, well, actually, if I've got a worse phone, it doesn't really matter if I've got to turn sit in the evenings with a blanket rather than have the heating on, or the heating down lower. If I have to shower at certain times of day, because I've only turned it on at that time. I've done all those sorts of things where it's like, well, actually, that this, we shower at this time of day. That's the only time the hot water's going to be on showers. and it does make a difference. But you're right, it's all these little things that add up rather than going for the big ticket lines, because generally the big ticket lines are probably your important ones.
Yeah, so good. That's so good, Danny. Like, I think, well, I mean, I find it helpful, this conversation anyway. I think it's great. And hopefully Fire Mountain listener know. If you have questions or comments, please email us, firemountain@sunnyhill.church. And I hope that you found this helpful. One of the things I think which is really helpful is the fact, Danny, that you haven't come going, I've been loaded, I've always been loaded, la 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 la, I've always had this great job, so I don't really understand. You've learned hard disciplines in need and put in principles in place that meant you weren't sacrificing what's most important, and that feels like it just carries you through now. Like you're still doing exactly the same thing, because and I've seen that where you will make sure that you're not giving up on your generosity lines, but prepared to sacrifice other things that you would go, I just don't understand why people would think that could be more important, and not in a judgmental way, because you're not like that, but where you would look and go, actually, as Christians, these things must have a higher frame than what they do. And I think that I think it's probably the best response Christians can have to to what's going on. I think we can moan about it. We can write to our MPs, and we should do those things if we're feeling strongly about it. I'm not against that stuff, but I think us looking at how do we increase our generosity when everyone's getting pushed feels kind of like the Christian response. What would I sacrifice to make sure I'm not stopping to give? So like for me and Shemaine, it's been one of the big questions as cost of energy prices go up and stuff, is we're going, well, like you, we're sponsoring a kid out in Uganda, and we're, doing our tithe, and we're support. How do we make sure that these things are protected? Because as much as we're feeling a pressure here, the kid that we sponsor in Uganda is feeling the same pressure. There's no different for him. And the easiest things we can take off are to have more and that's the crazy things, to have more disposable income is these things. And it's like, it can't be right. And yet I know there's a lot of Christians who even listen to this are going to either be going, you know what? I don't have that kind of money. And I'm not too sure I believe that to be true. I think you may not have that kind of money to carry on living the lifestyle you want to live. Then that feels really different to me. Not that I don't think there are people who won't have it, but I feel like for a lot of them and other Christians who go, it's all an immoral thing, it's all injustice. But basically, I was just on the Yeezy website and I just heard God say, I'm your daddy, buy big. Like that kind of, like, I think it's so great when he goes, no, we just really minimize our spending. Yeah, can I get 2 lattes? Do you want anything? I just think I think that's where we sit, like in this weird space where we're making comment, but we're not willing to actually do the yards to make it really work.
I think we've got responsibility as well for, there are a lot of people now more in need, and I think we have got responsibility to also support those people. And I think holding the generosity, excellent, but is there areas where we can increase it? And again, you have to make sacrifices to do that. I don't have, I've got almost no disposable income. Like literally what I have come in is out by the end of the month. So with these costs going up, I've got to make savings. But if I want to give more, I've got to make savings on top of the savings I'm making. And
that being said, if you go to Danny's eBay shop, matchingtrackies.com, there is a wide variety of trackies on there that you can buy that all match up.
And football boots, if you want some football boots that go with it. But I think it's all about intention. Okay, I'm going to be intentional with these things, and then where am I going to put my money and stuff? Because there are a lot of people that do need support.
It's great. Thank you for your time, Danny. That's been amazing session. I hope you guys at home have found it really helpful. I found it really helpful. Do you want to pray for us on the way out of this Fire Mountain episode 34?
Yeah, Lord Jesus, I thank you. You're such an awesome God, Lord. I thank you that you do provide for us, Lord, and I thank you that you are there and you will be with us. And Lord, I thank you that you bless us to be a blessing. And I pray that you just really challenge people today with everything that's been said. And I pray that, Lord, you'll help people, give them wisdom and guide them into where to look into their finances to free up cash to pay for some of these extra bills and stuff. And Lord, just thank you for you're just so awesome. You're so amazing. Just bless us, I pray. Amen.
Amen.